Today we're working on ankle and foot mobility. This will be a yin style practice, so we've got longer holds in each pose. You don't need any props for this practice, but if you have maybe a blanket or a cushion, perhaps a couple of blocks, this is a perfect practice to put them to use, but we'll make do with what we've got. Come to a cross-legged seated position, crossing your shins at the center and flexing through the feet. Rest your hands on your knees and just take a few moments here at the beginning of our practice to start to connect with self. Disconnect from all outside stimulation and bring your focus and awareness to your breath and your body. Soften your tongue away from the roof of your mouth and start to draw your breath all the way down to the bottom of your lungs, filling all the way to the top. With each inhalation, fill the crown of your head. Grow as tall as your imagination will allow. And with each exhalation, feel your shoulders soften. Ground your tailbone down. On your next inhalation, sweep your arms up, ground down through your tailbone, shoulders away from the ears, lengthen. On the exhalation, sweep your hands down and behind your back, clasp your fingers, press your palms together, and draw your shoulders away from the ears. Bring that little knuckle sandwich to your left hip, drop your right ear towards your right shoulder. Maybe open your mouth and let out a deep sigh. Opening into that left shoulder and neck. Inhale, lift your head, reach that knuckle sandwich back again, and bring it to your right hip this time. Drop your left ear towards your left shoulder. Maybe open your mouth and let out a deep sigh. And just breathe here, opening into that right shoulder and neck. On the inhalation, bring your head back to rise, reach your knuckles behind you, and release that clasp. Send your feet out in front of you and swing them to one side to come forward to tabletop. Knees can stay hip-width distance or you can send them wide. Walk your hands forward and press your sits bones back towards your heels. Lengthen out through your fingertips, shoulders across the back. Soften your forehead to the mat and then release your elbows down to the mat. If you have a cushion, this is a great place to use it. If your sits bones don't come to your heels, you might like to put that cushion behind the knees or on top of the heels. The 3 tattvas or principles of yin are come to the pose in the appropriate depth, resolve to remain still, and hold the pose for a time. Now the appropriate depth will differ from body to body and even within the same body depending on the side or even the time of day. So there's no particular place in any of these postures you should feel you have to go. The intention here is just to find your edge, to lean into a pose to the point where your body is already able to go and rest there for a while. So your depth does not have to look like mine at all. This practice is first and foremost about self-awareness, so listen to your body. And while we resolve to remain still, you might find that after a minute or so in a posture, your body has softened and you're ready to go deeper. So absolutely do that. Or you might find the opposite, that you've maybe leaned in a little bit past your edge and you can't sustain the pose and you need to back off a little. If that's the case, absolutely do give yourself the space and grace to make that adjustment. And keep your focus on the rise and fall of your breath to keep you anchored in the present moment in each pose. On your next inhalation, rise forward to tabletop and curl your toes under, bringing your knees to hip width distance if they're not already there. Let your heels fall out to the side so that your pinky toes are included in this curling under of the toes. And then pressing your palms into the mat, send your sits bones back to your heels again. Maybe that's far enough for you, but if you feel like you could go a little deeper, bring a little bit more weight onto the heels and toes by walking the hands back towards the knees any amount. Maybe you find that you can bring your hands all the way up to your thighs. This is an intense offering, and we won't be here too long, but we will be here for a while. So go to where you can sustain and stay connected to breath. If at any point it becomes too intense, you can walk your hands back out to any one of those previous positions or come all the way out and rest in child's pose. If on the other hand, you feel like you could go a little deeper, you have a little bit more space in those toes, then maybe you lean back onto your palms behind your feet. You can keep your head lifted, gaze forward, or you can let your head hang back, whatever feels best in your neck and shoulders. If you have enough space in the feet to lean back, but this is a little too much on your wrists, you can always take fists to the mat. Preparing to come up on your next inhalation, if you came all the way back behind the feet on palms, start to take your gaze forward, rise up onto fingertips, engage your belly button to slowly lean forward, hands back to thighs, and then walk your hands back out to tabletop. We'll take our hands a little bit forward beyond the shoulders and lift the hips up and back for down dog. Reach the heels towards the mat, roll the thigh bones in and back, and then walk the feet forward to meet the hands. You can bend into the knees any amount. You can let your hands just rest into the mat or take opposite elbows. Make sure to lean forward into the pads of the feet. Preparing to come out of this pose, release the elbows, take your hands to the mat, and walk one foot back to down dog, and then the other. Take one breath, reaching through down dog, and slowly lower your knees to the mat, tops of the feet to the mat, and sit back on the heels. If you have blocks, then this is a perfect place to put them to use. You'll bring one hand behind you to the mat or to a block, and then the other right behind those toes. You can keep your head forward or let your head drop back. And then start to lean your sits bones onto the tops of those feet and lift your knees away from the mat any amount, just wherever you can go. Maybe it's a little, maybe it's a lot. If it's a lot, then gently release your knees back down to the mat, and you might try coming into the posture, resting your hands on your knees, leaning back to the tops of those feet, and lifting your heels away from the mat here. If, however, you find that you can't bring your sits bones all the way back to your heels, then now's a good place to bring that cushion or pillow in, bringing it behind the knees and sitting back on the cushion. Then maybe you're able to lean back into the palms and lift the knees away from the mat. So taking whichever version of these is most suitable for you, take your focus to your breath and settle in. On your next exhalation, very slowly start to come forward, releasing your knees back down to the mat. Take your hands in front of you, coming to tabletop, and then step one foot back, curling the toes under in the other, coming into plank pose. Reach through the heels. Push the mat away. Stay for a few breaths, and then knees back down to the mat. Press your sits bones back towards your heels, and come back to child's pose. On your next inhalation, lean forward to tabletop pose. Swing your feet out to one side and sit back next to the heels, bringing your feet forward. Clear the flesh from your sits bones. Bring your wrists beneath your shoulders and flex the toes towards the face for Dandasana. Exhale, point the toes forward, trying to take the soles of the feet to the mat. Inhale, flex the toes towards the face. Exhale, point the toes. Inhale, toes towards the face. Point the toes on the exhale. Inhale, toes towards the face. Point the toes on the exhale. Inhale, toes towards the face. Exhale, point the toe. This time on the inhalation, roll the toes towards the left and back towards the face. Exhale them to the right and point them forward. Again, inhale to the left and back towards the face. Exhale to the right and back forward. And the next time, inhale the toes to the right, back towards the face. Exhale to the left and point. One more time, take these circles and then point the toes forward, pausing. Bring your palms behind your sits bones. Keep pointing those toes forward as if you could step down onto the mat from here. And then start to lift your hips, pushing your palms into the mat. You can release your head back if it feels good. Keep reaching through those toes. And breathe. On your next exhalation, drop your sits bones back towards the mat, flex the toes towards the face, and come back into an easy cross-legged position. You could cross the shins at the center and flex the feet, or since we've made a lot of space in the ankles, maybe you come into your Sukhasana, rolling your shin and the top of your foot onto the mat, heel in line with the pelvis, and doing the same on the other foot, bringing that heel in line with the first heel. Hands to knees. Take a few more moments for that expanding breath, lengthening the crown and grounding down. And inhale the arms up. Exhale, hands down to heart center, Anjali Mudra. Bow to yourself and to your practice. Thank you for sharing space with me. Namaste.